welcome to Stampscaping 101. We're going to be working on the definition of light, and this is kind of more of an exercise than a lesson in the development of this card itself. Okay. Now this is one exercise, well, not just one, but one of the things that you do in art school is, most people are used to working on a white piece of paper, whatever it is, through high school, drawing classes, working on a blank, white canvas, do their paintings, but I don't know, I guess maybe some high school art classes might do it, but I didn't really do it until I got to college, and that's working on kind of more of a neutral ground in terms of a grayscale type of surface. Usually it's, I don't know, a gray piece of paper or something like that, and developing your lights and darks, okay, something that would represent lighting in a piece, okay? And that's, this one's going a little bit extreme. I have a very dark piece of quarter-page lapis lazuli Stardream paper here, so very light, and we're going to work with that. I just like the little shimmery type of extra that we have on here, but you can do this on any type of blue, dark blue construction paper. You can even do it on a different color if you want to. I tend to think that wintry types of things, scenes look pretty good in blue though. Okay, so I'm working on this type of paper. I don't want to work on something like a foil for this project because it's going to be too smooth. We're going to be working on with materials that require a little bit of a tooth to the paper, meaning texture. And texture is something that you need for like hard or soft, like hard materials in terms of like a colored pencil or something like that. It needs something to grab onto, and if you're trying to put this wax on top of a foil, it's not going to go on very smoothly because it's going to be moving around on the surface. Even if you are able to make a mark on it. And then I do have a piece of, a stick of some oil pastel here that we'll also use. Okay, but any kind of, white pencil, Prismacolor, whatever one you happen to use would be good for this. Okay, now I've stamped out a scene very reminiscent of this one right here, and I've stamped it out fully on these types of scenes like this where I'm developing inks and overlapping them, layering them on top of one another. And this one I happen to use the paint pen as well. You can do that and then still stamp over those different types of inks like the white pigment ink and even white acrylic to some extent with your black pigment inks. I'm using the Brilliance because it dries on here really nicely. But if you're laying down media such as oil-based media or wax media especially, you can't really stamp over them and have a fixed impression, okay? Even if it does stamp out okay and dries, I don't know, you might be able to do it with a StazOn or something like that, but the areas that you stamp over wax with, it's going to really be subject to wiping off. Now, if you spray seal it and stuff like that, that should be fine. So maybe you can try that. But I'm just going with the pre-stamping on here, especially for this exercise in video. Okay, now I'm thinking about, one of the things I forgot to do is I was thinking about drawing a little moon in here. And let's see if I can do that really quickly. I'm gonna make this one a small moon. I just take a little hole punch, a standard hole punch like this, and what we'll do is on this right here, I could use my colored pencil, but the colored pencils just don't give too strong of a mark, okay? At least mine's kind of a cheap, well, I don't know, Stabilo, I don't know how you pronounce that. Yeah, it's a pretty good thing. I don't know. I think the one that I have here is, I don't know, it's meant for something else. So I did a little test mark on the back of one of my pieces of paper, and it doesn't give too strong of a representation of opacity. So that's where I'm going to try this if I need it. Okay, so let's see. Let's just go for right here. I think my white pen is almost out of ink. Paint. This is a white, opaque white acrylic pen, the Miaosun. And I think it's out of paint. These things don't clog, so I think I might be out of it. I've used one pen so far to completion. I think this one's just about out of paint right now. I don't know, I'm shocked at how long these things work. Okay, so there's my little moon right now. Okay, now back to that idea of utilization of white to represent light, okay? Now normally when I'm working on like a white piece of paper like this, if I want some kind of moon to look like it's the light source in a scene, what we're usually doing, like when we're using dye-based inks or something like that, is we're retaining that area of light to represent the light in a scene. So you're kind of doing the negative space around it. But when you're working on a dark piece of paper like this, like on all my scenes like this, we're working with white to represent that lighting. It's supposed to be the reflected light in a scene. So we have our light source in here. And now we're going to be working with white to represent that reflective light, meaning in this case, the light that's reflecting off the snow. Okay? So that is a really great exercise. I mean, it seems kind of simple, but it's something that we don't often do in stamping. Now, I've been using a lot of foils, so I've been doing it, but sometimes I think this might be kind of an easier type of. I have two different types of pencils right here. I think this one was this one feels like some sort of chalk or something like that, a pastel. I don't know, Stabilo. Okay, now color erase. This one's my wax paper. I was thinking, I'm getting a pretty light color right here. Okay, I didn't test that one out. I thought they were both the same. Okay, but here this one goes, okay? Now this one, I'll start with this one first. What I'm doing is I'm basically, or I am, not basically, but I'm filling in all of the area around my black areas, okay? So you're just filling in anything that isn't kind of dark, okay? So we see our little stream here that's fairly dark, but we see all these other areas that are open, okay? In my drawing, stamp design, I've just represented everything that's supposed to be snow, as kind of an open area. Now I do want a little bit of transition, but for the most part, you can kind of fill these areas in. Okay, so you just have to kind of observe the darker areas and don't color those out. Now, if you're working with something like a Prismacolor, don't go too heavy-handed right now. I'm going to recommend just kind of go with a lighter touch, okay, so that you're getting more of a medium value of this, not too light of a value, in other words. Because, with the colored pencil, the harder you press, the lighter it's going to get. Now, that was a really light area right here. Yeah, that's like some kind of chalk or pastel, because it comes right off like that when I kind of rub it. Now, like I said, if you have some kind of pastel that you want to try on this, you can. But just kind of build it up a little bit slowly, like I said, So with chalk or something like that, just... use a lighter touch. Okay, so can you see this coming around pretty fast? You can see my whole area in there. All right, now look at this. I'm just going to go do this and kind of do the brook. What do you call it? The side or whatever. The shore. It's not really a shore, but I don't know, the side of the creek. Okay, see that right there? And that really defines that whole area in there. Now, one of the things you might do is you might, if you don't have the stamp, you might stamp it out first on a white piece of paper so that you can kind of reference it, you know, and see exactly where these little areas are. But for the most part, I'm just kind of avoiding, like I said, those darker areas. Okay, this is the other side of it. Okay. These come around pretty fast, too. They're fun to do. I mean, I haven't done this type of thing in a long time. Maybe I should, because it's a really good technique, and it's a good exercise, in order to kind of visualize lighting. It'll strengthen, even if you already know it, too. It kind of strengthens it. For me, it's kind of an exercise, but it's a good one, that I could use as well. I'm doing it a lot on, with things like this too, where I'm representing light. I've been using a lot of foils and darker surfaces more than I have. I've done that more in the last 6 or 7 months, maybe, than I have in, I think, the previous 20 or 30 years of stamping. I'm just really kind of learning a lot about some different types of media. There's a lot of different types of media out there that are just, that I'm just discovering. I don't think they've been around for, 15, 20 years or something like that. Something like, these big fat paint pens, stuff like that. That hasn't been around for too long, at least in the number of color choices, and definitely not in the kind of the price ranges of some of this stuff. Some of this stuff is like so inexpensive. I think it was largely developed for the adult coloring book market. Gel pens, paint pens, alcohol pen sets, just everything. Okay, so that is that. That is really filled in quite a bit, but look how much stronger that light is up there than down here. Okay, now I'm going to try to achieve some lighter areas in here, okay? So one of the things that I'm going to try, I don't have a really good white colored pencil. I think some of the other ones are softer, some of the Prismacolors and other brands. But see, the harder you press now on the top sides of some of these areas, okay, you might be able to achieve, a little bit of a lighter mark, okay? So that what you start doing is on the top sides of these things, working with light media to represent light, again, or represent reflected light in this case, is you use a little bit of a heavier mark. So on the tops of these rocks, you put, a stronger mark. I don't know if you can tell at all. Yeah, I'm not achieving a lot of variation with this one. I don't know. It makes for a good initial pen to use, though, or pencil. I think that's about as much as I'm going to get. So, okay, so that is that. If you're able to get, you might be able, like I said, you might be able to get a better mark than I am using whatever brand of pencil you have. This is, I don't know, I found this in my art supplies from school. I barely even used it back then, but I used it for something. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is on the top sides of these things, we're going to make them a little bit lighter, okay? So it's the opposite of shading. This is one of the things that's kind of those main points that I try to get across from people that are coming over more from a whole area types of coloring type of process where you're filling in spaces based on outline styles of designs. Love those styles, but it's a different type of kind of mentality when you're doing things for lighting, okay? It could be the same type of thing. We're filling in this whole space right here, and it's largely the same value, okay? But you're just taking And in the case of making shadows, you're deepening the shadows with darker colors. But with light, what we'll do is we'll just add this in selective areas, okay? So let's see if I can do this. I'm not used to working with wax or oil pastels either. So let's see if I can vary my terrain here a little bit with kind of more illuminated types of areas, okay? All right, see that kind of, that illumination, see how I varied it on the top side? It's lighter, so I've applied some of this, and I'm tapering it, okay? So you apply more on the top, okay? And then as you move down, you just kind of use a little bit of a lighter touch in terms of the application process, okay? All right, so let's do the same thing. A lot of times people say, oh, I got too heavy of a hand. It's not really so much too heavy of a hand, but they're used to totality and coloring something evenly, okay? So you just kind of apply it down, okay? And then from there, you just use a lighter touch, you know? If you do have too heavy of a hand and you find that, don't hold your your tool the same way. Hold it like with 2 fingers maybe, or something like that. And just adjust the amount that you're applying, okay? So I'm kind of applying it a little bit, like so. And then I'm kind of, lightening my touch a little bit, maybe using more of the side of it, like so. But see that? Look at that lighting on there. And now, just for the very fact that I'm not applying as much of that in this area, it's transitioning with the lighting, but you're also kind of representing shading because it's darker, see like this, at the base and lighter on the top, all right? We'll do the same things, and you can look in here. Where am I going to apply it? Here's a rock, here's a rock. It's supposed to be a 3-dimensional form. It's like a potato or something like that. Here's one right here. I put all these different lines in here. You can do it on these little rocks in here too, if you put it on shoreline if you want to. And back in here, it's just kind of up to you. You can light it or just leave it as is. You don't have to do everything equally, okay? You can kind of bring more emphasis to the foreground by having, more light in here. But the thing is you do kind of exactly what I just did right there. You kind of make it, assess things. And it's hard to assess something if you're just kind of focusing in, let's say, in one area like that. If this is your view, so you hold it out at kind of arm's distance, and you make your assessment. You gotta kind of get a better feel of your lighting too, as you're working on it. You might call it your lighting scheme in this instance. Okay. See this right here? Just kind of varied a little bit. Like I said, if you can get this with your colored pencil, that would be great because you'd have a little bit more consistency in terms of texture. Although, this is pretty good texture with this too, but it's just different. Okay, so I'm putting a little highlights here and there on these little areas. Let's see if I can get kind of detailed. I'll just kind of barely touch it on, kind of making a little nick on tops of some of these different objects and forms. Okay. I tell you, this is a really quick way to do things too, and if you don't feel comfortable applying inks like this at this time, maybe this one. I don't know, try a pencil like this, a lot of you have colored pencils or watercolor pencils in your supplies. I don't know if you have a piece of this. You might not need it, though. Like I said, if you have a decent... I have a set of Prismacolors, but the white was gone. I'm sure I used it up at one point in time. Okay, so I think that is about it right here. Maybe I'll put a little bit more uh, lighting around my trees back here. You know, kind of closer to my light source. I can bring it down here. Let me look at it at arm's distance. I need to do that too. And see how it's going. Looks okay. So this texture in here. Don't fear texture. Texture is kind of an integral part of visuals and art. Okay. And especially if it's kind of reflective of the spirit of the surface that you're working on. Okay, I think that is about it. Oh, here's another one right here. Kind of missed that. You might be able to even rub, some of this off or spread it around. You have those kind of paper stomps, they call them. And it's just this little bound piece of paper, and you can kind of rub that. If you get, if it's too texturized for you, you kind of play around with it a little bit and kind of move it around. It looks like as I do this, I'm rubbing off some of my pencil work too. Yeah, it looks like you can kind of spread some around like that. So you can get all kinds of different textures maybe, using, kind of a collection. I'm not trying to make this smooth. I don't know. I'm just testing this out right now to see what it would look like. Or if it'll work at all. Okay, so anyways, kind of your exercise in lighting. And it comes together pretty fast. I don't know. I was kind of playing around with that for a while. No, I had the scene stamped out, before this video, but, 20 minutes or something like that. But I had the bulk of it down, like in 15 minutes or something. With that sort, you just kind of fill in. Now, this is snow, and we're doing white. But if you're doing any type of landscape, at nighttime, you're not reflecting a lot of different types of colors, okay? So even if this was, summer in California or something like that with no snow, you can still use white in that situation. But you can do any type of things like this. I mean, this isn't just a nighttime type of thing, too. If you wanted to do a daytime type of thing, and, you can represent well, if you're starting with a kind of a more of a neutral paper, but if it's more of like a green mid-tone color or something like that, and if you do want it to look some, kind of daytime, maybe you're using different colored pencils. Like if it's a green uh, paper or something like that, and you have this real grassy, mossy, rainforesty type of thing, then maybe you're using multiple tones of Prismacolors, your lighter greens, pale green, pastel greens, or something like that all the way to white or something of that sort. I haven't done that type of thing in a really long time, but as I describe it, it sounds like something that I might be interested in trying out. Okay, so lighting, I'd highly recommend it to kind of, oh, I don't know, refine your eye for seeing light and then depicting it in your pieces. Okay, and then especially when it comes to doing those transitions of lighting, going from light to less light to maybe just the plain paper or something like that. So lighter on tops of things, and then as it transitions down, it gets darker. It's no different than my hand right here. Okay, you see it's lighter on the top surfaces of it. You can think that these as rocks or something like that, and then see this as it moves down. It's getting darker and darker and darker like that. So this is being top lit, and and you have this transition right here. See that right there? My skin, it might be blotchy in different colors, but for the most part, you know, you can kind of see that type of idea on my knuckles right here. Lighter on the top, darker on the sides, on the vertical edges. Okay, so lighter on the tops, and darker on the sides. Now these are just the rocks, so I didn't do any reflection, but like the subtlety right here where it's darker down here, lighter up here. And this goes, if you watched a lot of my videos, you've heard me mention checkerboarding. Okay, now this isn't squares, but it goes from light, darker, light, darker, light, darker, light, darker, right? So you go from light, dark, light, dark, across your surface right there. It makes for kind of a richer surface than if this was all colored in evenly, equally, right? It would make this area seem kind of a lot less three-dimensional, you might say. Okay, so the oscillation of lights and darks. And you can do that with any type of visual that you happen to be developing because you control the lighting. You're like a lighting director, and this is your stage. Okay, so anyways, if you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section. If you like these videos, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks as always for tuning into the Stampscapes channel.